Good morning. It is the 2nd of October, a new month, a new quarter, and I'm just going to very briefly go through my trade ideas for today. As you can probably hear from my voice, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm only going to focus on one or two charts, and I'll get my levels in place, and I may pop back later, but I'm pretty much going to sit out today. So on my screen is the MES, S&P, E-mini 500 index futures. It's the 1 hour time frame. I'm going to start with the weekly because there's something interesting to look at. And let's get my pen. You can see on this chart we've been in a bit of a weekly downtrend, and we broke the major pivot area. This area 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we can see increase in volume, which is what you expect. But then look at this pivot area. We've got a candle which is smaller than the previous candle, but we've got increased volume, so potentially this candle here is an anomaly. And interestingly, it's on coming into this daily demand zone and into this weekly 50 moving average as well, and even more importantly, we've got a bottom tail as well. So potentially we're seeing a lot of buyers and sellers fight up around this level. And zoom out on volume, let's go to volume for the last few days, last few weeks. You can see the main volume was up here as well, so I would be a bit wary. And as you know, the end of October, November, December generally sees a bit of a rally as well. I'm currently long on a swing trade on the Qs, and I won't go into Qs now. I'll go to Qs now. So I'm currently long on. My stop is actually the low. This is the daily in the bottom right corner, and I got in just there, so we're back at break even at the moment, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. But what I was hoping to see was a bit of a rally up, and we talked about the fibs last week, where we could expect to see both SPY and Qs come back into that 370 area. So going back to the MES, we got that weekly anomaly, which could mean that we may see potential reversal coming in, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Going into the daily, there's not a great deal. We got this rejection off of this demand zone, and it couldn't hold the 200 moving average, so even though we're still in a downtrend, we've got to treat this as a downtrend until we break, which we haven't broken yet. Potentially we could be seeing a bit of the beginning of a reversal. We've got higher volume as well in these last few days, all with bottom tails as well, so something to keep an eye on. And this is today's candle. There was a bit of a move in the post market yesterday, Sunday, when the market opened. I think we saw a big rally up, something to do with US government shutting down. I must admit I don't really understand it, but they're not shutting down, and we saw the rally. But obviously the market doesn't like something, and it's giving it all back. So there we are. So we are below where we left off on Friday. So going into the hourly, let's get some levels in place. I made a few tweaks to the levels today as well. So particularly watching this area here, and we're at it right now. So this is a very high risk bounce area, or if we see continued selling off, a break and retest to continue this downtrend. And like I said, we're in a downtrend. Look at this, we're in an hourly downtrend. We looked like we were putting in a rally. We saw this head and shoulders pattern last week, and we did break the neckline. We came back, retested the neckline area, and it all looked good. And in fact my short was, I think I was short about there, and my long actually on the Qs was about there, and then we just gave it all back on Friday, and we're coming back into that same area. And if you see the trend line I've drawn on the screen as well, so we've got upward trend line, and it's probably no coincidence the market's come down, broken the lower trend line, pulled back up into this lower trend line area in the post market, in the pre-market, and rejected it. So currently on the hourly we are below the 50, the 200, the 50, the VWAP, and the 8 and the 20. So we're looking pretty bearish. Okay, so this trade, I'm not going to take it because it's too high risk for me. That trade is potentially, if we can break that hourly high there at 43.15, we might see a bit of a rally up, but that's what to watch for. And we've got this point of control bar as well, so probably might just adjust that with confirmation, 43.15. An area of interest I'm watching is this demand zone at the bottom, and potentially looking for a bounce in this area. Excuse me. 42.86 is a potential bounce area, but we've also got the bottom tails here, so we know there are definitely buyers in that area. So 42.80 down to 42.77 is a potential area, and we've got this solid yellow line which shows me on the 60-minute chart that's a daily level as well. So we know we've been down here on the daily and rejected and bounced. So this is probably the area to watch out for a potential bounce. And I think that's it really. And rejection wise, higher probability of rejection. I quite like 43.70. This area is a supply zone. Got a downward trailing 200 moving average as well. And potentially we've got this lower trend line as well. So we've got quite a lot of things lining up for potential rejection. And a double top, 200 moving average, trend line, and quite a lot of volume in this area as well. So we could see a bit of a rejection up here. So 43.70 is a higher probability rejection area, and that's one to keep an eye on today. So they're the areas to watch for. Okay, that's it really. So high probability down here at 42.86 through to 42.77. Higher probability at 43.70. That's probably the area I'd like to get. But we've got this entire demand zone, and we've got the tops of this candle, so we could see a potential bounce of rejection around that area, which is also this upward trend line. Okay, so that's it for the MES. SPY is very similar, so I won't really go through the levels, but just quickly sum them up. We've broken that level now, so I would say that's not really a valid bounce unless this candle turns into a bit of a bottom tail candle and we can break up above that level, 40.28, 428. Watching this area, 422 to 424 for potential bounce, and again this supply zone 430.85 through to 432 for a potential rejection. And this solid line, that means again it's a daily level as well, so we can see increased volume at this area as well, so potentially we could see a bit of a rejection there, and we may eventually come into this downward trailing at 200 moving average. Quick look at Qs. Not looked at Qs at all today, other than see where my swing trade is. So I'm currently long about there. I think I got in long. It was there. That's exactly what I got in. I'm coming back down to break even. So we've got this nice head and shoulders pattern at the bottom. We haven't broken this level yet, so potentially that's the area to watch for. If we're going to change trend, same as ES, we need to break through this area and potentially have a break and retest this area. So we've got the 200, which could act as resistance, double top, area of volume as well. You can see that based on high levels of volume, and potentially we've got a bounce happening now as well on the 50 moving average. So same as the Qs, same as the ES, something to keep an eye on. So this is a supply zone, so potentially this area here at 352 is for a potential bounce. Higher risk bounce around 354 to 355, and then a rejection. Keep an eye on this topping towers. That's the tin foil hat brigade. I'd probably put that in. 361 to 362 for a rejection. And obviously we've got this area as well, which is last week's high at 362 to 363 area. So basically watching this area as a supply area, this area is a demand area. So they're the areas to watch for. And obviously we've got this very high risk bounce level here, and that was Friday's low. Okay, NASDAQ. Imagine very similar to Qs, so I won't go into too much detail. It's already through the 50, so we've got this higher risk rejection here at, where's my 14,800 area, 14,820. That's a potential rejection. Let's put that in so we can see where we were yesterday. Bit of resistance here, and I quite like that area there, and a supply zone. I like putting in my zones. And look at that, and the supply zone lines up with that pivot as well. How I draw my supply zones is I take the pivot of the candle that's moved the most. So this is a big area where we saw the most movement, most momentum. And then, so I take that pivot and I bring it back to the body of the previous. I try to go for the opposite colour candle, so that red. I don't go with the tails, just the body. And that's how I can find my demand zone. It seems to work pretty well, and you can see that. Had I draw this in last week, we would have touched the demand zone and we could have got a nice reject. A nice bounce. So we said it was coming into this area, and it looks like it is bouncing from that area right now. It could have been a nice little scalp, but very risky, like I said. If I were to take this higher risk trade, it'll have to be probably the break of that candle, 43.20 still. Potentially the break of that candle, which is even higher risk, but not for me. Lastly, oil. We're still in a big uptrend on oil. We talked about this last week, higher concentrated volume, so more average volume than what you were used to for oil. Last time we saw this level of volume was around here, and that's when we were accumulating, ready for the breakout. And potentially now we could be up this area, waiting for the smart money to distribute the shares, ready for the move back down as well. So where are we looking today? We've got top in tail, looking potentially bearish, but we have to. Let's put those two pivots together. We're nowhere near breaking that. Let's put those pivots together. So we are potentially, this is the channel we're trading in. We could just, oh, wrong one. We could just trade right down through the middle of these, around there, and ignore that little false breakout. So we're definitely still in the uptrend, and got to treat it as an uptrend. So any shorts will have to be scalps, and longs can be well, however you trade, however you play your trades. Areas I'm watching, I've said this every week, I'm watching for a potential long around this area, which is the tops of this candle. I do maybe like that area for a daily trade, but for a swing trade back down here, and potentially if we can get back down to this area here, I would quite like a bit of a bounce as well. So I'd like to see it come in and then break down or something like that. Okay, that's it really. Just quickly go back over to the MES. So levels are in place, and this is potentially bouncing at the level we're looking at. So remember, know your levels. That's why I do this. Know your limits. Don't over risk. Trade